Hello YouTube divers, this is WaterDive 122 and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. So today, what we are going to do, we are going to be doing another album review here today. And we are going to review one of my absolute favorite power metal records of all time. And that is Ecliptica by Sonata Arctica, released in 1999. I've already done a review on Sonata Arctica, one of their albums. I reviewed their new album, Clear Cold Beyond, back in March when it first came out, and it still holds up as a pretty darn good album. But this here, Ecliptica, their debut album from 1999, just is the cream of the Sonata Arctica discography, or essentially, the cream of the Sonata Arctica crop, so to speak. This album, as I said, it's one of my favorite power metal records of all time, and possibly one of, if not my favorite, debut record of all time. And we're gonna get further into that later on in the video. But for right now, let's dive into a little bit of a backstory about Sonata Arctica, this lineup, and all that fun stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the vocalist at the time and currently is Tony Kakko. He is the vocalist for Sonata Arctica, and he still is in the band to this very present day. One of two members from this lineup that are still in the band to this day. That being Tony Kakko, as well as the drummer Tommy Portimo. Both of them were main staples in Sonata Arctica for their entirety of their run, which is still going on because, as I said, they just dropped an album a couple of months ago, which was good. The guitarist on this album is a guy named Johnny Limatanian. I believe that's how you say it. This, of course, being the debut album, this was the first album to feature him on the guitar, and he would be with Sonata Arctica until the Unaya album, or at least in the 2007-2008 era, before their current guitar player Elias Viljanen filled in for him. And this is also the only album to feature bassist. I'm just gonna butcher this. I just know this. Yane Kivalati, I believe that's how you say it. This is the only album to feature him on the bass, and after this point onwards, their current bassist, Yanni Kauppinen, would be on the bass from Silence onwards. And the interesting thing about this album, I always thought their current keyboardist, Henrik Klickenberg, always did the keyboards on here, but no. I did some research before this video, and I actually discovered that Tony Kakko is actually credited with the keyboards on here, which is insane to believe because the keyboard work on this album is just out of this frickin' world. I mean, no disrespect to Tony Kakko. I'm sure he's a great pianist, great keyboardist, but I mean, oh my gosh. If that's really him on the keyboards on this album, then, oh my word, it's just out of this world. Now, moving forward from this album, Sonata Arctica would continue to get individual keyboard players, as Kakko wanted to focus on vocals following this album. So they got another keyboardist to fill in for the second album, and then Henrik Klickenberg joined the band in 2002, right before the release of their third album, Winter Hearts Guild. So I thought that was pretty interesting information. So there's a little bit of Sonata Arctica trivia for you guys. Now, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this album, shall we? I will start us off by saying that this album has absolutely no bad songs whatsoever. I wouldn't even say there's any mediocre or average track on this record. Every song on this album is just majestic in every way, shape, and form. And I mentioned this in my Sonata Arctica album ranking when I was talking about this album briefly. Every song just captures an overwhelming amount of atmosphere and majesty all across the record from start to finish. It is an album that is like no other within the power metal genre, or at least from what I've experienced anyway. So there's that. There's 10 songs on this album over the span of just over 47 minutes. And oh boy, we're in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. Starting off with the opening track, and one of my favorite Sonata Arctica tracks in general, Blank File. This is a classic Sonata Arctica song. Well, then again, this whole album is filled with classic songs. Just a little bit of a heads up there, but Blank File is one of the classics, and this is definitely one of the best vocal performances from Tony Kakko, in my opinion. And this is the first song on the album. Just think about that for a second. I mean, it is such a shame that Kakko is not able to reach that limit again, because I mean, he still has an amazing voice, and you know, it's like I said in the Clear Cold Beyond review. At his age, he sounds awesome. I'm not taking anything away from that, but here, his unique presentation is just totally felt here, and it is just like, is unlike anything I've ever heard. I remember when I first listened to this record, and Blank File came on, I was immediately blown away, because this song is just cold, it is fast, it is technical, it is just, oh my gosh, it is great. I love this song. And then we get to one of the more weaker tracks on the album, which is My Land. I like My Land, it's a great song, but it just, there's just so many better songs on this record, so let's get into them. Alright, and one of those favorite songs on this album is the next track, Eighth Commandment. Another popular song in the Sonata Arctica catalog, a song that they continue to play on their live tours to this very present day. And it's not hard to see why. This is another classic song from Sonata Arctica, and a song that I've really grown to love more and more and more with each and every listen. I remember when I first listened to Ecliptica, I loved the song. I just thought that it just didn't really stand out, but the more I listened to it, the more the song grew on me. And now it is one of my favorite songs from Sonata Arctica in general. It is just so great. And again, you want to talk about great vocal performances? Here's another one for you. It's just great. And now we come to the next track, Replica. It's arguably the first power ballad of Sonata Arctica's career, or at least in terms of track ordering on this record. Because the first three tracks with Blank File, My Land, and Eighth Commandment, they were all these very power metal tracks, but Replica kind of shifts the mood, because now it's going into that power ballad story time like song. And, you know, it's great. It's got great melody, it's got great music, it's just a wonderful song, and again, another staple in the Sonata Arctica discography. And then we have Kingdom for a Heart, which sort of reminds me of like an early Gamma Ray song, so to speak. It's very just, you know, like halftime, with like a lot of a slower double bass, and with like a lot of juicy riffs and stuff like that, and catchy choruses alike. Kingdom for a Heart is just a great song, but again, sort of like with My Land, I just think there are some better songs on the record, but this is still a fantastic song. And now we get to the cream of the Sonata Arctica crop, or at least with this album, with two back-to-back bangers for power ballads. We got the first one, which is another classic from the band, Full Moon, which is, like with Eighth Commandment, a song that is still featured on Sonata Arctica set lists consistently to this very present day. And it's not hard to see why. This is just a beautiful song with a beautiful and fantastic atmosphere and a great story too. If you read the lyrics, you know what I'm talking about. It is just a perfect representation of Sonata Arctica's sound, in my opinion. Sounding very cold and majestic, but at the same time, very intelligent and just very thought-provoking. Love this song. And then we move on to arguably the most interesting song off of this album, and that is Letter to Dana. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous power ballad that opens up with a fantastic flute solo. And this is something that I wish Sonata Arctica did more throughout their career. Have like some flute sections in their songs. I know that they had a guest artist perform the flute parts for this song. And moving forward into Sonata Arctica's later discography, they were never really into like all those power ballads. They were more into like heavy, dark, and just fast as I'll get out power metal. But with it's songs like Letter to Dana that just beautifully gives off some variety to the record, and I really love it. And as far as the story is concerned, it is a wonderful story. It is a wonderful story. Fortunately, we don't have enough time to actually dive into the story of this song, but oh man, it is a very sad story, and it's just a perfect type of story for this type of song, honestly. It is just a fantastic number. And then we move on to the next song, which honestly might be the weakest song on the record, in my opinion, and that is Unopened. Unopened is a great song, don't get me wrong, but I kind of feel like it's trying to rip off Kingdom for a Heart a little bit. Like both of these songs sound very similar to one another. In many ways, I always view Unopened as like the sequel of Kingdom for a Heart for some reason, but I mean, still, it's a great song. And then, I'm excited to talk about this next one. This next song is not only my favorite song from this album, but my favorite Sonata Arctica song in general. And to those of you who have already seen my Sonata Arctica album rankings, you already know this. Picturing the Past. I remember listening to this song for the first time, and I was in my dorm room at college, and I just kept playing it over and over and over and over and over again. I don't know how my roommate didn't get sick of me doing that. But I love the vocal performance and the melodies in this song, especially in the chorus. The chorus, probably Tony Kakko's best performance vocally, in my opinion at least. Like his darker and raspy operetta vocals just totally feel oh so natural in this type of song. I love it. And of course, the guitar playing is wild all over the song and across the album. The guitar work, and the keyboard work for that matter, on this album is just out of this freaking world. It is just so wonderful. And then finally we get the closing number and the quote-unquote epic from this album. It's a 7-minute long track, Destruction Preventer. Again, I like this song a lot, especially in the chorus. I think the chorus is very catchy, and the middle sections where it has all those instrumental breakdowns, it's just great. It's really, really good. But again, I kind of think that this is sort of another good track. I don't think it's like great or anything, but again, it's a great song. It's a good song nonetheless. Because as I said, there's no bad songs on this album whatsoever, or even average or mediocre at best tracks on here. This is a very great. This whole album is just a great example of a band capturing lightning in a bottle. Not many bands are able to do this, especially on a debut record. But man, Sonata Arctica definitely hit it out of the park with this record. This is one of Sonata Arctica's most well-known records, arguably their most popular record, depending on who you ask. I know a lot of people are big fans of like Silence or Winterheart's Guild or Reckoning Night, The Days of Grey, etc. And for good reason. They're all great records. But in my opinion, nothing that Sonata Arctica has ever done will ever be as good as Ecliptica. Ecliptica is just one of those albums where you could sit back and listen to from start to finish and never get tired of it. Even if you think some of the songs on here sound the same, which, you know, in many ways they kind of do, like in terms of structure and in terms of their overall sound quality, like their overall feel and vibe, it's still one heck of an experience. And in my opinion, this is where Sonata Arctica peaked. They've had great records all throughout their career, but in my opinion, nothing will top Ecliptica. Nothing will top Ecliptica. It will forever be my favorite Sonata Arctica album, and it will forever be one of my favorite power metal records of all time, and possibly my favorite debut album of all time. And actually, no, screw that. It is my favorite debut album of all time. Not even close. Not even close. I love this album. It is a 10 out of 10. It is a perfect album. If you haven't listened to this album, even if you're not a power metal fan, go for it, dude. You have no idea what you are missing out with this epic, majestic, and overall beautiful record from start to finish. I cannot emphasize this enough. Go listen to Ecliptica right now if you haven't already, because, oh my god, it is so good. Alright, so with that said, that concludes this edition of Magic Metal Mondays. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterEye122, signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.